Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I'm the co founder and CEO of Laborless, an immigration tech platform that automates H-1B visa and perm compliance. I'm also the founder of GMI Rocket, a digital marketing agency focused on the immigration and global mobility industry, and of course, which brings you this show. Today's episode 155, and we have a very special guest, a fellow immigration lawyer, friend, colleague, Manjunath Gokare, who is an immigration attorney and the founder of Gokare Law Firm, and also the founder of Gokare LPO, which is sort of a second business that he started, which is kind of like a back office legal processing organization. I think this is something really cool. It's one of the reasons I was very excited to talk to Manjunath, how he not only built a successful law practice for, almost 3 decades, but also had the sort of entrepreneurial wherewithal and creativity to build basically a second business to help support the firm in terms of back office operations filing. So we'll talk about all of that. I'm very excited for this episode. Before we do get started, I want to say thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, e-immigration by Serenade. So with, right now, immigration law software is seeing a lot of consolidation. Many immigration case management companies that started as independent companies have been, bought and folded into bigger organizations, some of which don't even necessarily focus on immigration. So that's where e-immigration is different. They've been doing this for over 30 years, and they're still a family run, still an independent business, and you can call them, and a real person will pick up who understands immigration law and can help you, set things up or answer any questions. On the tech side, e-immigration has built really smart tech into their platform. They have AI-assisted intakes, automated form prep, case tracking that keeps deadlines visible across your docket. And it's so good that firms that use it actually grow 3 times faster than the industry average. So please check them out. By the way, if you book a demo through the link with e-immigration, they will donate $25 to Mobile Pathways, which is a wonderful immigration tech nonprofit that I'm part of and I really respect. So I super appreciate them donating $25 just if you book a demo. You don't even have to sign up. And obviously, though, if you do sign up, you will get your first month of e-immigration for free. So, if you're on the market for a case management system, obviously check them out. But if you're not, but you just want to know kind of where developments are going, what different teams are working on, talk to them. It doesn't mean you have to sign up now, but might as well know what is out there in the market today. So thank you, e-immigration. The link is in the show notes, or visit eimmigration.com/GMI Rocket. So thank you to them. And more importantly, Manjunath, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And I'm super excited to chat with you and learn all about your life and history and talk about your firm.
Thank you so much, Roman. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Episode number 155. It's awesome. And you've been doing this for so long. A huge fan of you. I compare you to the Terry Gross of immigration because I really admire Terry Gross and how she interviews her guests. And you seem sort of like the conversational style you bring to talking to your guests is really appreciated. I so look forward to the next 1 hour speaking to you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Absolutely. I like the conversational style. I mean, first and foremost started this show because I wanted it. I didn't think of this as a business or anything like that. In fact, I didn't even get a sponsor until episode 90. So I was sort of paying for everything out of pocket before that. But mostly because I love to have the conversations. And I just think that this was missing in our industry. I mean, there are a lot of immigration podcasts, but they tend to be about policy updates and the law and things like, politics. There's nothing really about the business of immigration. How did you get started? What made you build your firm? Immigration technology. So I'm very, grateful that the show continues to go on and guests continue to go on. But I've known you for a while, and I've obviously followed your firm, and I've known of your firm for a very long time. I didn't know this about you until recently. I guess when I really dug into your profile, you were an engineer first. I mean, we'll talk about all this, but it's just interesting. You came to the U.S. To study engineering. So let's back up to you have your own immigration story. You were born in India, in Bangalore, and I love to dive into sort of the guest background. So I don't know, what can you share about maybe your memories of kind of growing up in Bangalore? It's obviously a very different city now, probably with how much it's been booming from a tech perspective. So like, what do you kind of remember about the early days?
So Bangalore, they used to call it the Garden City of India.
Mm,
It was very sleepy, wide roads, not a lot of traffic. The climate is really wonderful. It sits at 3,000 feet above sea level in the middle of the Deccan Plateau in southern India. So it's quite cool relative to the rest of India. And there are a lot of educational institutions in Bangalore. And India, post independence in 1947, made a lot of investments into public sector companies like aircraft manufacturing, telephone manufacturing, electronic components, and so on and so forth, heavy equipment. So
mm,
that's how Bangalore grew. And Bangalore did not really become a tech city until like late 1990s, 2000. So I have very different memories of the Bangalore I grew up in because I left Bangalore in 1988 and came to America. And so when I go back to Bangalore now, since I have an office now and I do go back many times in a year, honestly, I don't recognize the place.
yeah.
And it's very, very different from the Bangalore I grew up in. And, like every other place in India, things have changed and things have
Yeah.
evolved. And now it's got a totally different character with the IT hub, the Silicon Valley of India.
Hmm.
So, but it's different for me. I remember the Bangalore I grew up in. Yeah.
But nevertheless, you studied engineering. Do you feel like when you were growing up, even though Bangalore wasn't maybe the IT hub it is today, was there still a kind of focus on, education from an engineering perspective? And, that's how you have a good career and things like that?
There was always a tech focus.
Mm,
There were quite a few government engineering colleges. Um, they were all focused on traditional sort of engineering disciplines, mechanical, civil, electrical, those kinds of fields of engineering. So that's how I ended up in civil engineering. So I was looking to really establish a career in civil. So my undergraduate degree, when I started in one of the local institutions, which was well known, ended up being in civil engineering. So
mm.
computer science and computer engineering and stuff like that was really not a thing back then. It was just coming into being.
Were you, in your family, did you have engineers or professionals in your family, or did you ever have any sort of business owners, that just like what did you grow up around?
No business owners for sure.
Oh.
But were there engineers? Yeah, my older brother is an engineer. He is a
Mm,
mechanical engineer. And I have another brother who is the eldest, and he has a science background. He has a PhD in the biology, botany space.
mhm,
Um, so we were really the first generation within our family to venture out into college and get professional degrees. My father had only a 10th grade education. He never
wow.
went to college. And he used to work in aircraft factory as a typist.
Mm,
So, so we were me and my siblings were the first generation of kids in our family who went to college. But yes, so the engineer for me who sort of like guided me was my brother.
mm. Well, I mean, so was there a focus in your family where your parents said, like, for example, your father said, "Look, I have a 10th, grade education. I'm working. I'm supporting the family. I want you guys, my kids, to go farther."
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he is very implicit in
Hmm.
everything he did. So he
Hmm.
basically said, "Look, to get ahead, you have to, become more educated." And so there were
Hmm.
opportunities, sort of like in post-independence India, and so, yeah, he did expect us to work hard, study hard, and get ahead from
Yeah.
where he had started.
So okay, so you're growing up, you have an older brother. He was, I guess, engineering. I mean, it sounds like business was never part of your environment, or starting a business or anything like that. So you went to school and you studied engineering in undergrad in India, right? Did you expect to stay in India and kind of get a job, or like by then were you already thinking, all right, now I'm going to continue my education after this somewhere else, whether it was America or another country?
So I really was like so many students my age at that time was enamored of America.
Mm,
And, so the America we knew was what we saw on TV. And there were two shows which came on Sundays on the television. One
mhm,
was Different Strokes, and the other was Star
mhm.
Trek. So we would watch both of those shows, and oh wow, this is so cool. Maybe we should apply and do higher studies in America. So that's what fascinated me. And another thing was 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, and
Mm.
1980 was Moscow Olympics, which was boycotted by US and some of the other countries. So we watched that, and then '84 really seemed like the Olympics, which we saw on the television, seemed so much sort of glamorous, if you will,
Mm.
and Los Angeles, and I was in engineering at that time, so I said, makes sense, maybe I should apply and see if I can get into graduate programs in America.
So I love that. It's so funny. I mean, I think about this living in New York as well. Obviously, New York is a city within America, but so many people come here and they're just enamored because all of the movies, all of the shows, I mean, so much pop culture takes place in New York City, and you see it anywhere around the world. If you watch any sort of media, television, etc., you'll see
Yeah.
New York City. But you're right. It's the same thing about the country in general, especially nowadays with TikTok and Instagram, younger people have access to kind of the whole world in their,
Yeah.
but before, what you saw on TV is what was just given to you by the big film studios and whatever. And, America definitely was glamorized. Was it, so, were you the first person in your family to come to America? Or I know you said you have an older brother. Did he come to study here as well, or no?
No, I was the first one in my family.
So did you tell your parents, okay, I'm gonna, you finish your undergraduate studies in Bangalore, and then you told them I'm leaving, like I'm moving away from you to the other side of the world to study? I mean, or were they supportive of that? Were they nervous? I mean, how did that go down?
So yeah, I did talk to my father, and so I told him I plan to apply to graduate programs in America, see if I can get into one of those schools and see if I can get a visa. He was very supportive, and
Mm,
my father was the kind of guy, he had no dogma, meaning he would not come to anything with some preconceived notions. So
mhm.
he was supportive, but certainly there was a level of apprehension about this to see how this would all play out.
Of course, yeah. And again, it's so far away; they can't just easily come to you. Or
Right.
here in America, if you live in New York and you go to college in Philadelphia, you have parents that are going to be nervous, and
Yeah.
but halfway around the world, definitely. But you ended up doing that. You went to Clemson University, which I know is not in Los Angeles. How did you, just out of curiosity? I mean, this is not a major topic of conversation.
Right.
How did you choose Clemson, or Atlanta, or Georgia in general, or was it kind of like that was one of the schools that accepted you, you liked them, and you just decided to go?
So I applied only to 4 schools.
Hmm.
So mostly I selected the schools based on their tuition fees.
Mm.
Um, Clemson was very affordable,
Hmm.
and it also had a good tech focus. There, and also many schools would not offer in-state tuition to foreign students. Clemson was an exception in that they offered graduate students, international graduate students, in-state tuition, and their in-state tuition was only $73 per credit hour. So
Wow.
for a full load, the semester fees was about $1,200. So I knew
Wow.
even if I don't get any sort of funding from the school, I can make it happen with some loans from India. So that was the logic. But
Yeah.
anyway, I ended up in Clemson. I had no funding before I came here, and I came and I talked to the dean of the program, and he saw me, and I guess he liked my background, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to offer you some funding from the very first semester," which basically gave me a complete break on the tuition. And he had some funds from state of South Carolina, and I really ended up paying nothing for my graduate education, zero.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
What do you remember? I mean, you land in Atlanta, you land in Georgia, land in America. What do you think?
No, no, no. I landed in New York.
Oh, you landed in New York. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Well, that's even more dramatic. So, what do you remember from that? I mean, that's
So I landed in New York. It's a hot, muggy day. I think it was July of 1988. I had a cousin who lived in New Jersey at that time. And I told him, back then there were no phone calls and all that. So I'd written to him and I told him, I'm coming into JFK on this date. I hope you can receive me. And he received my letter, but he forgot that
oh no.
I was coming in on that date. So I lined up in New York in JFK, and I have no idea where I am, and I'm looking, and there's nobody there. And then I had a little bit of money, and I go to make a phone call. You know how you have the area code followed by the number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just was dialing the number, whatever, 493-5658, and it was not going through. And then I said, "What's going on here?" And then there was a guy from Trinidad who was traveling through JFK who saw me struggling with the phone. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm trying to, call my cousin who lives in New Jersey. So I'm dialing this number. It's not going through." "Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a different state. So you have to dial the area code and the number, and you'll go through." And then he taught me how to make this phone call.
Wow.
So I called him, and my cousin said, "Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry, man. I forgot. But hang in there. It'll take me 3 to 4 hours to get there, but I'll get there." But he did get there. And it was kind of
wow.
close to, I don't know, late. And he came and picked me up.
It's just, what's interesting to me? So I've been to Bangalore. I've been to India twice. Absolutely loved it. Once last year and once the year before to Bangalore. And it's just amazing that today I show up in India. I mean, obviously, basically everyone speaks English, which makes, at least for me, my travel a little bit easier. But I just use Uber. I mean, I just turn on my phone, I turn on my iPhone, and I use the same app that I use here in New York when I, over on the other side of the world. And it's just to think about the logistics that you had to go through to get, somewhere versus what it is now is unbelievable. And it's, it's been what, less than 40 years.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, your cousin picks you up, you go there. I mean, what you, just so I know, you stayed in New Jersey for a little while on the way to Georgia, or was it just sort of like a quick stopover to say hello and then you went to Georgia to settle in?
So I think it was a cheaper flight to fly into New York compared to anywhere else in America. So I flew into JFK, stayed with my cousin for like a couple of days, and then flew to Kentucky. I had another cousin, spent another couple of days with her, and then took a bus, Greyhound bus, from Louisville, Kentucky to a place called Greenville in South Carolina. And then, by then this classes were starting in like a couple of weeks or maybe 10 days. And the Indian Students Association at Clemson, they had a big graduate student sort of like, group from India. And so they picked me up, and then it was all fine after that. So I
see.
Got started. Yeah.
Wow. That's that's a trip. I mean, that's also nice. You got to see family. So, obviously you came in an F1 visa. So, I'm assuming that it was relatively simple. It typically goes to the university. They handle it. what do you remember from those days? I mean, you're now settling into a new country. You grew up, with English, but still now this is the primary language around you. You have an accent. Were these things impacting you at all? Were they sort of normal because maybe you were part of an engineering, like an Indian student group, and so maybe it felt at home? Like, what were your kind of, I don't know, thoughts or feelings back then as you were settling into America?
So, I mean, I was all of 22, right, Roman?
Right.
So I was very curious about
Yeah.
the surroundings and whatnot. Yeah, I spoke English, but still, obviously, I had a bit of an Indian accent to my English. So it took a little bit of unlearning and learning to speak properly and conversationally with folks here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I always tell people, I tell my family, Clemson was the best thing that happened to me. It was a small town, and people were extremely kind, and so they were accommodative of of some of my sort of like weaknesses and whatnot, and so that made the transition easy. So it was a 2-year window, which it allowed me to not only go to school, get a degree, but also sort of acclimatize myself to an American way of life without being like in a big city like in New York or Chicago with the hustle and bustle and having to deal with too many other variables. So it was just the perfect thing for me at that age, I think. And I came in, the dean of the department, Thomas Kynott, was kind, and the graduate advisor I had, under whom I eventually did a thesis, his name was Leslie Grady. He was a wonderful guy. He was from Texas. And so a lot of people really sort of help you along. And the student body was also wonderful. It was a very, very small graduate program in environmental engineering. There were only 25, 27 graduate students. I would say about 10 PhD and 15 masters. And it was a graduate-only program, meaning there were no undergrads. And there were 9 faculty for 25 students. So it was like a 1:3 ratio.
Yeah.
So everybody knew everybody. And people were not judgmental. People were really accommodative. People were kind. And that's my memory of my time from Clemson back then. I think those were the 2 best years. It helped me acquire a degree and also understand sort of the American way of life.
It's amazing. That's very a great advertisement for Clemson, because you're right. I mean, and as you said that, I think about all of the obviously foreign students that come to NYU, Columbia, all the different schools here in New York City. And you're right, especially if you've never been out of the country before, you're 18, 19 years old, especially for undergraduate, you come into this huge city. There's just the noise, the smells, the languages, the aggression, so that's very cool. So you graduate, you have a master's degree in environmental engineering. You didn't go to law school for another 5 years. So you did work as an engineer for a handful of years.
Yeah, so I finished in 1990 in Clemson. I got a master's degree, got a job in Atlanta. I came to Atlanta Labor Day, 1990. So I literally drove on Labor Day and started work the following day, Tuesday. I worked in the civil/environmental field for 9 years, from 1995 to 1999. But I went to law school part-time beginning of 95. So halfway through my engineering career, I decided to get into law, and I enrolled in a school called Georgia State. It's a wonderful school in Atlanta. So they were one of the few schools, or probably the only, I think maybe one of 2 schools which offered a night program. And it was an ABA accredited law school. And so I approached them and I said, look, this is my background and I want to pursue a degree in law. And I cannot really quit my job. I have a full-time job. I was married and I did not have a kid, but I halfway through law school, I had a kid. So they said, and I said, I'm only applying to this school and I have a decent LSAT score and I have a decent background. If you give me the opportunity, I'll study here. And they took me in and started in the fall of 95, finished in May of 1999. It's a 4-year program if you go part-time.
Right.
And then I took the bar in July of 99, passed it, and started practice after that.
Wow. What made you choose? I mean, that's such a, you come here, I mean, you've done the thing that everybody wants to do. You come to America, you get a degree in a very sought after field, engineering. You got a job in a big city. Atlanta's a great, wonderful city. What inspired you to think about, additional schooling, but not even a PhD in engineering or something completely, more or less unrelated as a to go to law school? Yeah. What was the thing that, sort of triggered that change?
I think a few things. I was looking to acquire a trade. So to me, law is a trade because it's a professional occupation, and you have to have a license to practice as a lawyer. And also allows you to hang your own shingle, right? So
True.
You have all the essential ingredients you need with a law degree and a law license to start a law practice with not a lot of investment. So that was sort of the driving force. That's the reason why after 1999, after I took the bar, passed the bar, I didn't really go work for anybody. I started on my own, because that was really a driving force for me to do something on my own, to be on my own. And I knew I was smart enough and I was creative enough to not to pat my own back. If I spent 8 hours of a day on myself, I can make something out of it. So that was the driving force. And what really gave me the idea of going into law, in engineering, I used to work in an area called pre-treatment under the Clean Water Act. And so there was a lot of, I used to interface with cities, municipalities, regulators, EPA and EPD, state and federal. So the people I would interact with were two kinds, two professionals, engineers and lawyers. And also regulators who were also mostly engineering, a science background. So what I would find was people with an engineering degree would not understand law fully well, and vice versa. So I said, okay, if I can get into law, maybe I can bridge the two and get into environmental law as an occupation. So that's what really got me started. But 1999, Y2K was happening. There were a lot of opportunities in immigration law. And very quickly, also in 2000, if you remember, Roman, there was something called Life Act, which was passed by Clinton, and which allowed people who were present here unlawfully to file a labor certification or an I-130 before April 30th, 2001, and be able to adjust status, and the 245I. So that through the payment of a fine. So that also said, okay, hey man, I can have enough contacts within the immigrant community, and I also have enough contacts within the business community, people who are starting and running businesses, doing Y2K kind of work. So maybe I can tap into those two things and get into the immigration space. So that's kind of what happened. So I ended up, even though the driver was environmental law, ended up being in immigration law. And immigration law has really been very kind to me. And it's a great bunch of people. I tell folks, the people I work with, the colleagues, I can pick up the phone and call anybody and talk to anybody, and they will help you out, which was so critical when you're starting a practice fresh. And so many people have helped me along the way, and they don't judge you. And I think that camaraderie is there within immigration law because of all our stories. I mean, you're an immigrant, I'm an immigrant, we work with immigrants. And so there is some level of empathy and compassion, and which may be lacking if you're, say, a litigator, and it's very, very competitive. And so that's what I liked about it. And I said, hey, this makes sense. I think I can build a career here. And now it's 27 years.
It's funny because when I went into law school, my undergraduate degree was in financial economics, and I spent every summer working in finance in the city. And I did get it, and I graduated. I was supposed to graduate in 2009.
Yeah.
And that was obviously right after the financial, crisis and the crash. And I had a job offer, which is rare. I mean, I was so lucky to have a job offer, but I didn't accept it because in my internships, I enjoyed them, but I didn't feel stimulated enough. I felt like it was a little bit boring. And so I decided actually in college to pursue law. I stayed for an extra year. I got another degree in like philosophy, kind of a pre-law degree, and went to law school. And I'm sharing this because my thought when I went to law school was, let me work in maybe securities law or corporate law. I have this background in financial economics. And then I found immigration, my first summer internship, and I just fell in love with it. And, I didn't even think about any other field of law. Everything I did starting my 1L summer and thereafter was all immigration related. So, and I do think that part of it was the people, the colleagues I met, the how the firms treated me, the nonprofit work that I did. It was wonderful. So, it's just funny how that happens. I want to take a very quick pause before we get into your, how you started your practice, and just say thank you very quickly to the second sponsor of the show, Prof Val. So for those who don't know, Prof Val provides expert opinion letters, professional plans, and immigration business plans for immigration petitions. So from EB1s to EB2NIWs, H1Bs, L1s, O1s, E2s, EB5s, and so many more. I mean, any kind of case that you need a business plan or a personal plan or an expert opinion letter to help with the application. Prof Val can help with that. Their expert opinion letters are signed by obviously qualified U.S. based experts, and the idea there is that they're designed to help explain and boost the petitioner's credentials, their role, their field, their endeavor, their business, et cetera, specifically targeted to USCIS. And the professional plans and business plans they create as well at Prof Val helps with people who are applying for, E2s, L1 new office, EB5s, et cetera, where you're trying to explain a business and, the hiring practices, et cetera. So if you're an immigration lawyer or working at an immigration firm, and you're working on these kind of employment-based cases or extraordinary ability cases or even investor visas, and you do need, expert-backed sort of documentation, do check out Prof Val. They are offering $75 off of a, professional plan or business plan or opinion letter for anybody who watches the show, and just reach out to them at the link in the show notes. And when you're checking out, just put Roman or GMI Rocket somewhere in the checkout. And if you do this before October 1st, 2026, you will get that $75 off. So huge thank you to Prof Val for being a supporter of the show and making it possible. Okay, so Manjunath, you graduate, you're working as an engineer, you're going to law school part-time in the evenings, and you're married. Now you have your kid. I mean, so many things happening. You graduate in 1999 and you hang your own shingle immediately, right? Which is, to me, I mean, it's incredibly risky. It's and so difficult to start a law firm. But it sounds like, one of the reasons was that you were plugged into the immigrant community, maybe through your master's degree, perhaps also as well, just afterwards through your personal life. And as you said, there was this Life Act that allowed people to adjust status. And so there were a lot of opportunities. Did you have, maybe I shouldn't ask you this publicly, but it's been 27 years or 27 years since then. Did you know what you were doing when you got started? I mean, law school is one thing, but filing a petition, did you have mentors? Like, how do you I would be so nervous to start a firm on my own right out of law school.
No, it was not easy. It was not nervous. I mean, I was nervous. It was a hard slog. There's no question. So a few things. I had a very supportive spouse. She was fully behind me. She said, if this is what you want to do, just go for it. And so
amazing.
And also, I was not really driven by, I need to make X amount of dollars um, um, at any time. So I'll make do with what I have. So that
Mm.
so supportive spouse, not really driven by a revenue target, rather driven by a goal to establish a meaningful practice. And lastly, from day one, I basically told myself, I'm not going to do anything which I'm not comfortable with. So if I don't feel comfortable with a type of case, I would rather send it out to somebody who knows what they're doing rather than keep it in on my desk and not do a good job. So,
Mhm.
so that was my um, sort of thoughts, when I started the practice. Um, it was a lot of self-learning, really, not only in terms of setting up the practice, and there are so many pieces to it. Nobody
Mhm.
teaches you all that.
Right.
But thankfully, also, I was not a young guy. I was 33 by 1999. I'd worked in engineering for a full 9 years, so I knew sort of how to interact with people, how to be credible, when it came to what I brought to the table. So even now, I mean, I signed on a big client in 2006. I was 7 years out of my practice, and he's good friends with me even now. He's the CEO of a big company, 60,000 employee company. And I have worked with him across companies as he has moved. And he told me just the other day, like maybe a year ago, he said, when I first met you, I didn't realize you only had like 6, 7 years of experience. You sounded a lot more confident than
Mm.
somebody who just has that level of experience. It was not a lot of experience. But one thing though, I mean, I value people who trust me, and I do my very best not to disappoint them. So,
Mhm.
which means I do what I can to the best of my abilities every single day. And
Mhm.
if I cannot do it, I would rather bring somebody who knows what they're doing as co-counsel, or even just give up the case. Say, you do it. I mean, I do this even today, wherein I'll say, hey, so and so, you guys want to handle this? I don't have the bandwidth, or I don't have the expertise here. I don't have a problem in admitting to it. So
Mhm.
I think with as long as I was clear on those things, I'm not really driven by, okay, 6 months I need to meet this revenue target, or I need to have this many clients. So it sort of grew organically, but it was not easy. I mean, it really took, in my view, at least a good 2.5 years for me to get settled.
What advice would you give, let's say somebody's starting out a firm? I mean, today we're recording this in August
Yeah,
2026. There's so many AI tools. There are so many tools that allow smaller firms to be even stronger than they used to be,
yeah,
right? To work faster, to draft more quickly, compile cases more quickly, do research more quickly, things that took more people and more time even 5 years ago, but certainly 25 years ago,
yeah.
can be done very quickly now. So you need a smaller staff, so in that case, I think there are a number of people that are starting their own practices, now thinking I can rely on and use tools to help me really scale myself or maybe a very small team. But that doesn't bring business. You can have all the tools in the world, but
Yeah.
you need clients. So what would you recommend? Would you think that how you found clients then is transferable to now? I guess, if someone's listening and they want to say, all right, well, they're thinking, I'd like to start my own firm. What advice would you have for them based on your experience of how you started in the beginning with business development?
You can't really forget the basics. You have to meet people, you have to talk to people, you have to build trust, you have to do whatever it takes. So, one example from very early in my career, I think it was 1999 or 2000. So, somebody called me. He's an Atlanta based businessman. He called me and he said, I have an employee here. They have a manufacturing facility here. He's from India. He said, the employee came in on B1, he was given 3 months. We need him for some more time. Can you file an extension for him? I said, sure, yeah, I can handle it. And so, this early on, I don't have a lot of work. So I did the 539 paperwork for his extension. And I called him back and I said, look, the paperwork is ready. What do I do? He said, okay, just go ahead and send it to me. I'll sign it. I'll have the employee sign it and send it back to you and you can file it. I said, no, I've never met you. I'm going to come and meet with you. He said, oh, yeah. I was in Marietta at that time. So for people familiar with Atlanta, Marietta is like northwest of Atlanta. And the gentleman was in Conyers, which is east of Atlanta. So it's a good 35, 40 miles from where I was to where he was. He said, oh, you sure you want to drive 40 miles just to get this paperwork signed? I said, absolutely. I mean, I want to meet with you. I want to talk to you. And no problem. And he said, okay, come on over. I'll buy you lunch. And so I drove from Marietta to Conyers. This may sound silly, but this is what it takes to build relationships. And I met with him. His employee signed the paperwork and I went back. So I probably spent more than half a day in that effort. But he's a client today, even now, after 27 years.
Wow.
He appreciated that so much. And the fact that I'll give advice which is in his best interest. It doesn't matter if it does not lead to a case for me. He said, I used to have a big client in a big law firm. He used to have an attorney in a big law firm in Atlanta. She would charge him for every 6 minutes, anytime he would call. He said, yeah, I've supported her for 5 years or 6, 7 years. I'm going to try this guy because he seemed credible. And he moved from her to me. I've never disappointed him. And he's still a client. So there's no magic to it. That's what I tell people. And there are no shortcuts to it, right? So you have to invest in people and really look at it from their best interest, and it'll all fall in place.
I love that. I agree with that. And it makes me think that I should get out and drive around more and see people more. But I do think that it's possible to invest in people digitally as well.
Sure.
Even from my own home, maybe I can't drive to you if you're somewhere on the other side of the country. But if you need anything, like I had a client of mine call me the other day and just to ask me for my advice about which conferences to go to, so their law firm could maybe have some more exposure with some different clients. This is not my service. We provide the software for their H-1B compliance, but this partner knows that I go to a lot of conferences and said, look, I don't know what to do. So we spent like 35, 40 minutes on the phone. And I was more than happy. And sometimes people will say, can I bill you for your time? I said, no, of course not. I'm more than happy to give you this. So I love that advice. And, again, it makes me think that there's nothing like in person, but you can do the same thing virtually as well.
Absolutely. So the takeaway from that should be just invest in people and look after them, and they'll look after you.
So you're building this firm, obviously focused on immigration. You're getting some of your first clients through your network, and the clients that you do get, you're investing heavily into them, which builds trust, it builds loyalty, right? It builds longevity. This is 1999 that you started. Now you're going through in the early 2000s. How did the financial crisis impact your firm? 2006, 7, 8.
It did. So 2002, the office I'm sitting in, I've been in this office since 2002. So I bought this office condo. I've been here ever since. There was nobody. There are a bunch of offices here. Suddenly things thinned out. There used to be cars all around, people working. For a while it was scary. There were no cars. And a lot of people were unemployed. And you go to any of the restaurants here on Old Milton Parkway, places which used to be buzzing, you would see they were not really busy. And, so it was scary. But, we just tightened our belts, and we really never let go of anybody. We just had to scale back a little bit. But like any other thing, I said we will weather through this one as well. And but it was a tough couple of years for sure. And uh, businesses were not spending, and so much of what I do is business immigration. So if the businesses don't spend, it affects our bottom line as well,
Right.
and it did. And so there's no, it was a rough 2-year patch.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Your firm, Gokare Law, what is your focus? Who are your clients today? What is your majority, the kind of work that you do, just in case folks are listening and thinking, well, what is their firm all about?
So, yeah, I mean, it's employment focused, business immigration. We have, a lot of our clients are Indian. I would say about 60 to 70%. IT focused, but again, about 50 to 60% IT focused. But we are also focused on other areas like manufacturing and automobiles, being here in Georgia, and then plastics and whatnot. So we have a good mix of clients and some very large clients who have grown over the last 2 decades. So we have touch wood. I mean, we have not lost a lot of clients. I mean, as they have grown, we have also grown, and but the focus is employment based. So a lot of H1s, L1s, employment based green cards and whatnot, firms.
And part of the reason I ask is because, I think the lessons that someone could learn from you are, number one, obviously how you got started. Again, like I said, I would be so nervous to start my own law firm right out of law school, especially if I have a young family and I'm letting go of a career that was paying me guaranteed salary. You made it through
that's
that.
the hardest part.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, the calculation is eventually you'll make more than you were working for somebody else. But that transition period could be quick or it can be slow. And that's the scary part. But, you made it through that. You made it through the financial crisis. You're a business immigration firm. Now COVID hits, right? Now we're in 2020. But to backtrack a little bit, you started your LPO just before COVID, a few years before COVID. And so that's why I wanted to get to that. What was the inspiration? What made you feel like, all right, let's set up this entirely different infrastructure internally? Obviously, it's a separate company based in India. Like, how did that come up? And, what were the maybe challenges or benefits of doing that?
So the best thing which happened was setting up the LPO. We started the LPO 2016, January 2nd. So we spent half of 2015 setting up the office in India, hiring and staffing and starting getting a brick and mortar space and the infrastructure. So the impetus for starting the India operation was, yes, we went through a downturn, when the financial crisis and the housing meltdown happened, but we did bounce back from that. And then the trajectory was really upwards. So through 2015, when we decided to open up the LPO, there were a few things. I saw an upward trajectory for Gokare Law Firm, and I said, I think I need to feed into this momentum and capitalize on it. And the India LPO seemed logical because the Bangalore LPO, there are a lot of good lawyers in India, and India is a common law country, just like US. So the foundations are similar. So if we can train them in the US immigration laws, they can add value. I can add more people there because of the cost differential. And the other attraction was something called follow the sun model. So we said we will utilize the follow the sun model wherein we really work around the clock. So USA works US time, India works India time, and the fact that they're really 12 hours apart nearly gives you round the clock coverage. So if you're able to set up teams over there and over here, and they collaborate with each other, you can process cases twice as fast. All right. And you can also bring in a cost competitiveness to the process because you're adding your India staff at a lower cost. So I thought I can take advantage of the upward momentum we had in the US, supplement that with an India back office with exactly the same kind of technology and resources we have here, and use a sort of a buddy system and a follow the sun model and improve the volume of work we can handle. So that really was the driving force behind the LPO. Plus, I understood Bangalore, right? Being there from Bangalore, I know the place. I have contacts, so I knew I could. It was not easy, but I knew I could um, get it off the ground with some partners there. And the other thing also is um, um, I lost my train of thought. So it's the it's basically I think it took some time. I mean, it's not like there were technology challenges. The technology we have now today compared to even like 10 years ago was different, especially when it came to document sharing and collaboration and all that. Bandwidths have increased. The ability to collaborate really across the globe, anywhere in the world, has really made it easier now. So we went through some initial challenges and whatnot, but in the end, it all paid off.
Yeah, and that's kind of why it's so interesting, because to your point, you have a growing law firm and a growing practice, and you say, all right, let's do something else. Let's do something in addition that's difficult. Once again, we don't like to rest on our laurels. But at that point, then once you did set it up and you hire the right people. And by the way, the two times I've been to India, to Bangalore, was specifically for immigration events, global immigration, but very high percentage of folks are U.S. focused. I mean, the amount of U.S. immigration knowledge that lives in Bangalore is unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. Incredible. I mean, these are people who manage massive immigration teams from Bangalore, global immigration. Obviously, they oversee U.S. immigration, but then you also have tons of service providers, tons of lawyers, people who are qualified attorneys. Just they live in India, and they know the U.S. immigration system just like any attorney does here. And it was really, and I always knew that, like, I knew that through my work as an attorney before, but to go there and talk to people, and it's really, I felt like I was at an AILA conference, but it was a local small meeting or conference with Indian immigration folks. So it was very impressive. So there's a lot of talent, I guess, is the point there.
Yeah, there's an enormous talent. Yes.
So you have this LPO. You started in 2016. Your firm is on the rise. The LPO is helping support that, and then COVID hits, right? And COVID was an interesting time because in some cases, I remember, especially in the beginning, folks didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, will there even be an immigration industry afterwards? Will the borders stay closed forever? But some firms did better than ever during COVID, because the reality is people don't shut down. And they, but maybe you had to do some litigation work. Maybe it was less filing and more advisory work. Some firms at least survived. Some thrived. Very few people shut down from, what I know. But in the beginning, early days, I remember I had conversations with lawyers, especially because I don't practice anymore. They said, Roman, how do I do what you did? I want to get out of practice. I want to start a business. What was kind of your experience with COVID? With corporate relocations obviously down, especially in the very beginning. How did you, handle that as a law firm owner?
It was challenging. COVID threw a curveball at us, all of us, which none of us were expecting. So we started the India office, and I don't like to get into politics, but Trump 1.0 happened. And secondly, immediately, through all that, COVID happened. So revenues did decline because global mobility
Right.
did decline. So given the nature of our practice and how much we work with companies which are really multinationals with resources all over the world, Brazil and Mexico and Indonesia, Thailand and India and Turkey and all over the world. So they're constantly looking to move people from all over Canada into the US. So all of that slowed down significantly. And we did see significant year-on-year decline in revenues. The saving grace for us was October 2020, when priority dates became current for EB India, EB3, and that gave us sort of a surge of revenue from existing cases. Other than that, you just had to ride it out like any other firm. So we had grown within India significantly once we started, by taking advantage of the sort of the inherent momentum we had in the US on the US side. That scaled back too because we had too many bodies especially on the India side. So that like you asked me about the financial downturn of the 2008-9 timeframe. So it was similar to that. So we had to sort of like tighten our belts and hunker down, and that's what we did. And we knew this was another passing phase. We were going to weather through this one as well. And fortunately, I think for us, we have never been, our overheads, we manage the overheads carefully. I mean, we have never been sort of extravagant in our overheads. And so, and I always pay myself last when it comes to challenging times. And so it did pass through, and now it's behind us.
That's an amazing lesson as well. Paying myself last. It's I suspect that your employees have always been very happy and hopefully loyal as well, because it's when you take care of the people that help you first, it's the business is much more resilient.
Yeah, people have stayed with us all through these years.
Yeah. What do you see as kind of the future of the industry? I mean, you've been you've watched things scale from you first were an engineer. You watched the .com bubble grow, then you watched the .com bubble burst. Working in immigration throughout various kind of downturns in the economy, including the pandemic, different administrations. Now there's this age of AI. There's everything from AI drafting to automated case management. That just does things so much more quickly than it used to, and so much more. I don't know. What do you see, kind of looking backwards, if you start to think about what's coming? Where do you envision the immigration industry going, at least in the U.S.?
So, I mean, technology has always been a huge player in our line of work. So people who have incorporated technology and processes have really managed their practices better than others. And I'm an engineer and I'm very process oriented. So I've always been interested in that and also invested in that. So even now, like people who evaluate the processes we have within our firm, they say, oh, many of the, even the bigger firms don't really have this level of sort of built-in processes. I remember a discussion I had with somebody in Texas. He was the in-house counsel for a very large company, India-based company, and they used to do all the processing in India, and he would sign off on all the documents and put it together here for filing with the USCIS. And then we were at a conference together, I think, and then we were talking, and then I asked him, how do you handle sort of the cases internally? I mean, or do you have any sort of software to automate all this so you have a handle exactly on where your cases are? It's sort of a case management software, a practice management, not the firm software, but really handle the CRM kind of thing. So he looked at me and he asked me, "What do you guys have?" And I explained to him what we had. And he said, "Really? I mean, you're a small firm and you have this?" And I said, "Yeah, we have this proprietary tool. This is how we are able to uh, handle volume without really dropping the ball. So I exactly know where a case is internally in the pipeline, and after after the case has been filed, we know where it is." So with the advent of AI, I've had discussions with other people within the industry who have really built successful companies and exited. And I see the writing on the wall. You have to really incorporate those.
Yeah.
If you don't, you'll still be okay, but you will be less competitive relative to people who are nimble, who are adaptive, and who are incorporating those into like AI-related drafting tools and whatnot into their processes. So I think it's coming, and you have to figure out. You have to be smart about it, and you have to bring that into your process. And the space is also kind of evolving. It's really not mature. It's not there yet. A lot of people are doing a lot of different things. I think maybe it'll all settle down in the next couple of years, 3 years. I don't know. Once it does, you should already be ahead of the sort of the curve and trying to think of these things and see how you can bring them in, mainly to help you with your processes. That's my feeling. I think you'll be left behind if you don't.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like I said earlier, on the one hand, AI and different new technologies are enabling smaller firms and solos to do more with less.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we're seeing consolidation where smaller firms are saying, "I can't compete unless I'm joining forces with a much bigger organization." So
very true.
It's this push and pull, and I don't know who's going to win. I mean, my suspicion is just kind of logically is that consolidation will continue. There's outside. I talk about mergers and acquisitions now quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of outside capital coming into to law in general, but certainly to immigration, which of course is creating different types
models.
of entities, different models. Yeah. But on the other hand, so I think that's going to exist. On the other hand, I think that there will always be space for highly specialized, solos or small boutique firms that, the clients don't go to them because they have a 24-hour turnaround for an H-1B or whatever the case may be. They go to them because they're creative, they're experienced, they will take the hard cases. They might not be the fastest, but they're going to work through your very complicated issue in a way that will get you the results that you need. So I guess the average firm that's just doing well, but nothing special, no specialization, but that isn't big enough to necessarily quote unquote compete. To your point, we'll have to incorporate some tools and we'll have to make some decisions. Do we want to specialize and be like a hyper-focused, on white glove service or whatever? Or do we want to think about consolidation so that we can join somebody who's big and have that economy of scale to support, more clients? So it's interesting. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
That is definitely happening, and it's going to accelerate. We know the change in laws, the Supreme Court decisions from Utah and Arizona in terms of allowing non-lawyers to come in and run, law firms, and it's already happening. So you'll see some of that consolidation, and you'll see a lot of solo people sort of going along that route to really not wanting to invest in technology and not be burdened by that. And, they rather outsource that to somebody else and focus on practice. And also, like you rightfully said, there'll always be people who will do extremely specialized work and boutique work. And I know somebody not in the immigration space, in litigation, all he does is write appellate briefs for cases which go on appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court, and he also argues those cases for law firms, and very successful practice. And he is like extremely good in that space. He's never going to go out of business. It's not like people will suddenly stop appealing cases to Georgia Supreme Court, right? So there's always space for people like that, and extremely smart, competitive, skilled kind of work. And then there's also like what you described will happen.
Do you
That's
feel,
consolidation. Yeah.
and kind of maybe as we wrap up, do you feel like there will be one day where, I don't know, AI will just take over the whole thing? Because I don't think so, and many people talk about it. Yeah.
No. Yeah, sorry, but AI is as good as the information on which it's built, and I don't think AI can really replace a lot of things. I mean, it can supplement. I'm not worried about that, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm in the
I'm
same
sure
boat.
many of the mundane kind of jobs, repetitive, maybe will go away, and maybe it's for the good. But there is always, you cannot remove the human component in law or medicine or anything. I mean, AI has its own limitations.
I wanted to just very quickly before we wrap up, we had just a couple comments from Roberta sharing, another inspiring story by Manjunath. So thank you so much. And Roberta says, true, it's all about relationship. To a prior point we made, she said, I have to build them online since I live across the world, but nowadays with Zoom and LinkedIn, it works. I wish I could meet you all in person. So we wish the same for you, Roberta. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the comment. And, for anybody else watching, listening live, do share any thoughts or comments about this episode here. So, kind of as we wrap up, one last question for you. I did ask you before, kind of what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe starting out a practice for the first time, or, who is, how do you build your business, build your firm? But what advice are you listening to right now? Like where you are in your career, where you are in your life with your firm, what's the advice that's right now the most impactful for you?
So to me, I'm more towards the end of my career, right? So I truly enjoy what I do even now, every single day. I like to think I bring the best to the table every day and add value to my clients. I like the relationships I built, but also it's time for me to sort of simplify things somehow professionally. Things are not very clear to me at this stage. You and I have had conversations, Roman, about this. I'm sure I'll figure out some solutions wherein I'm creative as well as able to do some other things which I've always wanted to do but have not had the time to do, given how much time this takes. Correct. So I think things will be clearer to me maybe in the next 2, 3, 4 years. That's sort of my timeline. I'm always open to advice. I listen to people. I talk to you. You offer wonderful ideas and thoughts. It's really refreshing to talk to people from all spheres of life and learn from their experiences and take what you can from that,
Right.
and incorporate that into your own sort of aspirations and where you are, in your sort of runway. I'm all ears always. I'm open to ideas.
Yeah. And I feel like I've always viewed you as an attorney that has, at least some work-life balance, which I think to me is a number one priority. I love what I do as well, but I worked for a handful of years where I had basically no personal life, and I decided I will never do that again. I don't want to wait until I'm retired to finally do this, a few things that I'd like to do, or to have enough sleep. I don't want to catch up on sleep in my 70s. I want to be able to sleep now while doing great work. So I totally, I totally resonate with that advice, and I will try to do the same thing for mine as well, even though I'm much obviously earlier in my career. I thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really cool to learn about everything that you've built, both from a law firm perspective and from, your LPO, and just seeing and understanding how you think about business. It'll be exciting to see what happens in the next few years in the industry, as you know, both with your firm and in the industry. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Manjunath. Really wonderful conversation. Thank you for having me on the show, for coming on to the show. Where can people find you? Where's the best place for people to connect with you if they have questions? Maybe they want to into your services.
The website is the best way, gokarelaw.com. So they can, we have a consultation tab on our website and people can reach out to us. And truly, I'm very accessible. They can call me in the office, and I'm always on emails. I'm always on phone calls. I like to talk to people and see, if we can collaborate, if we can work with each other, help, why not? And but more importantly, I mean, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. It's truly an honor. I appreciate it, and it was a wonderful conversation I had with you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, as well, for tuning in, for listening, for watching, for the wonderful comments. What a great episode. I'm really excited to, start to really bring on even more, attorneys on the show that have, maybe built something from a tech perspective or just something creative in addition to their law firm. I think all these stories are important and actually tie into the technology and business ecosystem of the immigration industry. So huge thank you to Manjunath for being a guest. And lastly, of course, thank you to eImmigration by Serenade for being the main sponsor of this episode. Just to give you a quick reminder, eImmigration is an immigration case management platform. Whereas many other immigration case management platforms have been acquired and consolidated into a variety of different, companies that may or may not focus on immigration. eImmigration is different. They are 30 years plus in the industry. They are still family run. They're still independently owned. As they say, you can call them and a human being will always pick up and who knows immigration and answer your questions and talk to you. On the technology side, eImmigration has really great and smart tools. They've got tech AI-assisted intakes. They've got automated form prep for all of your immigration forms, case tracking, internally on your dashboard, so you can see everything happening across your docket at any given time. Firms that use eImmigration actually grow 3 times faster than the industry average. My favorite part about eImmigration, other than the team, they're wonderful family-run business with amazing employees. If you book a demo with them, they will donate $25 to Mobile Pathways, which is an immigration nonprofit that is providing immigration tech services and data, legal access to immigrants. I'm involved with them, and the fact that eImmigration will donate $25 to them if you book a demo with them is amazing. Of course, if the demo turns into a new subscription, you will also get your first month for free. So if you are interested in learning more about them, and obviously if you can at least book a demo to get that $25 donated, check out the link in the show notes, or go to eimmigration.com/GMI to book your demo through that link and get those deals. So huge thank you to eImmigration. Huge thank you to all of you for listening and watching and everything. Have a wonderful weekend and see you on the next episode of the GMI Rocket Show. Peace out.